My next game review is a mad release by the Pickford brothers, and it's called Amaurote. And this is another one of those games where I've got a version for another computer, this time the MSX. So I'm going to load up and play the Commodore 64 version and then do a comparison to the MSX version. So this is a mad release, as you can see from the bottom of the front cover, and we've got a nice logo on there with a kind of metallic silvery sheen to it. And the artwork seems to have three futuristic looking gentlemen, one of which seems to be carrying his lunchbox, and they're in a city which has been attacked by something with very large pincers. Not more to be said about that really. And the spine's exactly as you'd expect, and the back's pretty much as you'd expect as well, with some screenshots. Not really quite sure what's going on there. Looks like some kind of scrolling shoot 'em up though. And another screenshot down the bottom there, and a little bit of info. All alone in a city infested with killer insects. Not a particularly enviable position to be in, but you've been selected to sort out the 2,500 high-res screens of the capital city of paradise, so get on with it. That's abrupt and to the point. Inside the inlay we've got a couple of pages of instructions, loads and loads of blurb about what the game's about, and then a bit about the city. Divided into 25 districts, and each one has been infiltrated by the insects. I assume that's 25 levels then, basically. Tells you a bit about the insects, which then goes on to this second page. Inside, more about the insects, scouts, drones, bombs. You've got a radio and a scanner and some controls and the loading instructions, and the rest of the inlay is blank. This is the title screen then. Not very spectacular, but it has got some nice music, and also the credits for the game. Music by David Whittaker, as it says there, and it is a binary design production, and it is copyright Mastertronic, funnily enough. And this version of the game is by Andrew Routledge, and also it says here that it's designed and graphics by the Pickford brothers, John and Steve. That's pretty much it for the title screen, so let's commence the game. And the game starts with you having to choose a city to go and defend with this little doofer, for want of a better word. So there's 25 different levels to choose from, and you have to clear a level before you can progress to the next one. So we'll start where he started, in the middle there, and you press fire to warp there, and it says Canaloon or Canaloon, however it's supposed to be pronounced, welcomes you. And this is me. It's some kind of walking device from an overhead view, I think. If you push up and down, the sort of legs on the side move, and if you push left and right, the legs on the top and bottom move. So I'm on the surface of a planet in a city, and the idea is you've got to rid this city of all the insects, and you do that by firing bombs at them. I've got 40 bombs, as it says on the readout there, and this thing here is a scanner that's telling me where the nearest insect is, so it's over to the right somewhere, so I shall plod along that way. As you can see, it's a loose interpretation of a city with roads and stuff, a lot of empty space for a city. So here's a bug, kind of mind its own business, but I'm going to zap it with a bomb. Slightly peculiar with the controls is the bomb fires in the direction you last moved before you stop, so sometimes you end up pointing the wrong way and firing in the wrong direction. So I shall keep wandering around trying to find all the bugs and getting rid of them. There's no sound effects for the explosions when you chuck a bomb at the bugs, but there is some very nice sort of spooky, sinister music, which is quite fitting with the almost sort of B-movie style of the game, which is of these big bugs invading a city. So that's quite fitting. Oh, I've missed one there. I'm not sure if you'll notice, but the bombs, when you fire them, start off quite high up, so if the bugs are quite close to you, you don't get them. They sort of start high up and then go down towards the floor. So I shall carry on searching for the bugs. The bugs do damage you when they come into contact with you. You can see the damage on the left hand side, currently 13%. Other things on the readout is the amount of damage to the city, and also there's a amount of money that you've got to spend on upgrades and stuff, which is 5 million whatever currency units they use on this planet, which is quite a lot of money, I suspect. Also, you can activate various scanners. There's another option of the scanner. If you press F5, is it'll tell you where the Queen is. The Queen actually keeps sort of churning out new insects, so it's probably better to go and eliminate the Queen as soon as possible. So I'll go and do that now. The instruction book says that the Queen is the most dangerous of all the enemies. But when you get there, that's the Queen there, you'll see that she's really not. She just sits there as a big fly. She does actually generate new enemies, but she doesn't do anything herself. So what you need to do is, the normal bombs don't kill the Queen. Let's just prove that. As you can see, she hasn't been eliminated, so you have to order in a super bomb, which you do by pressing F1, which takes you to this little menu. And you can choose various things, but I'm going to choose a super bomb, and I shall fire the super bomb at the Queen. Kaboom! Queen is now gone, so no more enemies can be spawned. Go back to the enemy scanner and I'll go off and finish off the rest of the enemies. So graphically, it's a bit bland, to say the least. A lot of grey. Quite nicely defined graphics though, and I do like the animation on the little thing that you're piloting. Also the bugs are quite nicely animated. It's all very chunky Commodore 64 browns and greys, but that's not a bad thing. So yeah, they're quite nicely defined graphics. You can blow all these things up, by the way, that I'm manoeuvring around, just to demonstrate. You can do that, but that does damage the city, which you've got to try and avoid. So I'm just following the arrows to try and find the remaining bugs on this level. And this one's giving me the right run around, because first it was up, then it was left. Oh, there it is. Okay, so let's see if we could... Hopefully this is the last one. Nope, there's another one. It's quite a big landscape to walk around on. It's not very interesting though. Oh, there it is. It seems if they vanish off the screen, then your hits don't count. So hopefully it'll come back on the screen in a second. That is a bit of a criticism as well, that it is giving me the right run around. And there's still more to go. You have to be quite close to the edge of the screen for it to scroll, which means you don't see much at a time before you walk straight into an enemy. Okay, here's another one. Maybe this will be the last one on the level. Nope, still more to go. The best thing about the game, undoubtedly, is the music, as mentioned by David Whittaker. And there's still another one. That's really good stuff. The graphics are quite nice as well. Gameplay thus far, somewhat tedious. So I've been wandering around the landscape for seemingly miles, and come to the right hand side of the gameplay area. As you can see, I can't go any further right there, and it still says that the bug's to the right, and I've read about this. Funnily enough, for a game with bugs in, it's a game with bugs in, and there is a bug which sometimes places the enemies outside the area which you can play in, and it looks like that's the case in this case, which is absolutely disgraceful and immediately wipes out any kind of credibility for the game. I will just wander all the way over to the left hand side again to see if I can find the bug. I'm just wondering if the screen sort of wraps around and the right hand edge on one side might be the left hand edge on the other, but I don't think so. and that's a very abrupt end to the game if that's the case. I did play it through once before starting the video and the same thing happened. I did actually complete one level and then got stuck on the second level. And if I was able to get to another level, I'd be able to show you that the background does change, there's different colours and things like that. But I'm not prepared to shut this down and load it again if it's just going to keep displaying this bug. As you can see, the journey from one side of the map to the other is immense. Now it's actually pointing upwards, so maybe I'm going to get lucky here. There is actually still one. No, it's pointing me all the way back to the right again. I've basically given up already. It's really dull. It's nicely presented, but incredibly boring. So that's enough of that one. Obviously not worth $2.99 if it's bug-ridden in both senses of the word, and not really playable. There is some other options on the radio. You can repair your little spacecraft thing. You can order more bombs, and you can also do rescue, which is supposed to quit back to the world map, I think, but when you press that, it just drops you back on the same one with the same problem. So that's also pretty crap. So with that in mind, that will do for the Commodore 64 review, and I'll now load up the MSX version, which I know is based on the original Spectrum version, and hopefully that might be a little bit different. So I've got the MSX version loading. Let's take a quick look at the cover of this one, and it's exactly the same apart from it says MSX at the top. 64K only, which I've got a 64K machine, so that's not a problem. The main difference is the back, and there's some screenshots on the back which it clearly states are from the Spectrum version, but as I mentioned, the MSX version is a port of that, so they should look something like this, and you can see they look considerably different to the C64 ones. We look to have quite a lot more definition, and it looks to be more of an isometric perspective, so we'll see how it turns out. Otherwise it's exactly the same inside, apart from different loading instructions and different keyboard controls, so I won't bother showing that. Here's the title screen then of the MSX version, and quite nicely done it is, much better than the Commodore version. You can see the text scrolling across the bottom of the screen there, and we've got this sort of demonstration in isometric 3D of the character moving around, throwing little bombs out at the top. This is a port of the Spectrum version, as previously mentioned, and it's got the design by John Pickford scrolling across the bottom of the screen there at the moment. And we've got the information already on the screen there, your DOSH 5 million, and the sort of readouts of all the various things, number of bombs, super bombs, and so on. So let's get the game started, and this is where it starts to go downhill, almost literally. Because there seems to be another bug in this game as well, in this version, at least in my version of it. I've tried loading it several times and it's the same every time. The character immediately scrolls down to the bottom right of the screen, as you've just seen, and I can move him. I can't move him at all with the joystick. I can move him ever so slightly with some of the keys. Q seems to make him walk back up one spot, but immediately makes him walk back down unstoppably to the bottom right. I can also move him up to the top right and back to that point there, so there is a bit of movement. And then when I press space, it actually starts the level. And again, he's just moving down to the bottom right. And there's limited interaction I can do here. He just keeps going and going and going until he hits something, and then I can use Q again to move him just back up one space, and then he goes down to the right and gets stuck again. I can use P. No, P doesn't make him go anywhere on this. Maybe I can use A. No, it's just Q, and basically he's just kind of stuck. I can throw a bomb, which is bouncing off the screen. And that's it, basically. That seems to be all I can do. Oh, there's a bug moving around at the top right. The graphics are very nice, very detailed. The isometric perspective is much better than the top view perspective on the Commodore 64. I can call up the radio menu, and for a second at least, and it scrolls down and then immediately exits out. If I'm lucky, I can sometimes activate other things that are going on there, but not very often. And basically it seems to be broken, which is really annoying because it looks much better. It's got the sound very similar to the Commodore 64 version, so it could, in theory, be a much better version, but this version seems to be broken as well. This is basically turned out to be an utter disaster of a review, both of the C64 version, which had a bug in, and the MSX version, which has got an even worse one that makes it completely unplayable. What a utter disaster. So I've looked on the internet for a sort of existing YouTube video of the MSX version, and the only one I could find of the MSX version seems to exhibit this exact same bug. So I can only assume it's completely bloody broke, and you probably might be better off sticking with the Spectrum version, if any version at all. I haven't played that. The YouTube video of it makes it look quite good, but frankly I'm just completely disheartened. I just can't, I don't know what to say. Utter disaster, as I said before.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.